everybody, welcome to WTF Hammer Underworlds. Today's video is going to be my final Season 2 warband balancing video, looking at the final warband that was released, which is Thundrik's Profiteers, and I've already reviewed this warband. The link to that review is in the description below, and the summary of that review is as follows. That this warband gets a very large boost when inspired, comparable to the Chosen Axes, actually probably better than the boost that the Chosen Axes get. Although unlike the Chosen Axes, these guys' inspiring mechanic is a lot easier to achieve, requiring you just to play the game as you would normally play the game and score objective cards. Of course, you have to keep Thundrik alive in order to be able to inspire your units. So that's a bit of a caveat there. Second point is that this warband has low movement, which makes it difficult to engage evasive or passive enemies. So the real Achilles heel of this warband is getting long boarded and having opponents that avoid combat and score passive glory. However, they do still have a high movement unit, which is Drakskewer, who can give a headache to play styles that are evasive like that. And they do have multiple ranged attacking units who can still, even when uninspired, reach and attack units that are 5 hexes away, which is pretty substantial. This warband is very strong against aggressive opponents. So the bread and butter for this warband is to basically be attacked, to have enemy units charge in and try to take your guys' heads off, because then they're just sitting ducks to take blast after blast, 4 activations of shots with high accuracy, with special combat abilities, knockback, cleave, allowing them to score objective cards and then to subsequently inspire their units, who get much tougher when getting inspired, which brings me to the last point, that these units are very hard to take out of action, which is unique for a warband that has so many units. They have 5 units and their minimum wounds characteristic, at least when inspired, is 3. They have multiple power cards to provide toughness boosts. This warband, in my opinion, is the toughest warband in terms of their durability. So all that being said, I had ranked this warband as an A, although borderline S in terms of their ranking. They're very strong. The only reason I didn't give them an S is that they do have that Achilles heel against passive play, and they're definitely not top tier at all points, as we saw in the later iterations of Beastgrave Universal card release. So based on all this, I've decided to tweak this warband to provide slight modifications to sort of keep them within the rank of A, maybe nerf them a little bit, but also complement them at the same time. And as I always do, I'm going to be providing some errata suggestions and recommendations for new faction-specific cards to show what changes we can make to tweak this warband effectively to balance them. Starting with errata, I'd recommend first some fighter card errata, specifically for 2 of the fighters in this warband, because I think that they should just get fewer toughness boosts when they inspire. So Thundrik, I'd recommend, gets 1 block defense, and Allenson only gets 2 wounds when inspired. And this is based on my justification. If we look at the other fighters, they get, I'd say, more mild boosts, although they are still pretty substantial. Drakskewer basically gets an extra damage and an extra wound, which is 2 increases from getting inspired, which is nothing too major, although damage and wounds are probably the biggest boost that you can get upon inspiring. Lund gets also damage on a range attack, which is really nice. He gets movement and wounds, which is 3 boosts from getting inspired, which is pretty good, but I didn't feel it completely necessary to nerf Drakskewer, although 4 wounds is very high. Iron Hail goes from 2 to 3 wounds, from 2 movement to 3 movement, gets an extra die on his attack rolls. That's also a boost of 3. So I decided to sort of draw the line at 3. And anybody who gained more than 3 boosts, I decided I needed some kind of a nerf, particularly in their toughness. So let's look at Thundrik. Thundrik gets cleave, gets an extra damage, gets an extra movement, gets an extra defense, and gets an extra wound, which is 5 boosts from inspiring. I think it's excessive, so I decided that in order to nerf his toughness a little bit, he should only have 1 block when inspired, kind of similar to Fjolgrimnir. So if he does get attacked, he's going to eat it, but he still has 5 wounds, so he's definitely durable. I don't feel like he needs 2 shield and 5 wounds, because that brings him to practically Hrothgorn's level, which is excessive considering the strength of the other units in this warband. And Allenson also gets big boosts. He gets a bonus to his melee damage, a bonus to his range accuracy, a movement increase, and a wound increase, which is 4. So I decided to knock off that wound increase so that at least one of these units is fairly easy to take out of action. So justification is that their inspire mechanic is not so difficult as to warrant such large increases, because they get lots of other stuff. And they also already have power cards to provide a toughness boost, so these tweaks to their fighter cards I think would make a big difference in terms of reducing their toughness enough to make it more of a fair playing field if they play against other warbands, particularly against aggressive warbands. And that basically does it for my errata suggestions, which is just this fighter card errata that I described, where Thundrik only gets 1 block defense when inspired, and Allison only gets 2 wounds total when inspired. And this brings me to the new faction-specific cards that I recommend, where I'm always going to follow this format, that to basically make this warband play out of the box, that they have 12 objective cards and a 50-50 split of power cards. Currently, they have that 50-50 split of power cards, but they have only 10 objective cards, meaning that they need 2 new objective cards in order to be played out of the box. Just like all the Dreadfane and Beastgrave warbands, and I assume Dire Chasm will be similar in terms of how warbands will be released. So, what are my recommendations? Well, it's as follows. My first idea would be a useful card that synchronizes with this warband's strengths. Their main strength being the fact that they easily score immediately cards. So I would give them a faction-specific opening gambit since it's about to cycle out. It can be called Well-Earned Promotion. Justification is that these guys are the Surge Kings and only provides 1 glory, which isn't excessive, and it also helps these units inspire, which is definitely complementary to their playstyle. And my final recommendation would just be a mid-tier card that promotes aggression, because I don't want to really boost these guys. And my recommendation would just be a fun one. It'd be a faction-specific Carnage, similar to the card that Molog gets, called Firing Squad, where you score this in an end phase if your warband took 3 or more enemy fighters out of action in the preceding action phase, worth 2 glory points. Definitely not easy to achieve, but worth putting in your deck if you plan to blast enemy units over and over with firepower, which I'm sure you plan to do if you play these guys. Justification is that this is a decent card that doesn't break the bank and promotes aggression. And that does it for this video. So errata suggestions summarized above. As far as the faction-specific cards go, I'd recommend releasing 2 new objective cards in order to make this deck valid, play out of the box, that being a faction-specific opening gambit called Well-Earned Promotion and a faction-specific Carnage called Firing Squad. So that does it for this video. If you guys have any thoughts or suggestions, please comment below. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to support the channel. And this covers all of my Season 2 suggestions, and next week I'll be releasing a summary video where I have all of my balancing suggestions compiled and available in PDF format. And next set of review and balancing videos we'll be looking at Dreadfane. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you all have a nice day.